Hello, in this video, I would like to share with all of you an introduction on taxonomy. First, what is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the science of identifying and naming species and organizing them into existing system of classification. The taxonomy system we use today is known as linear taxonomic system. This is because the system is developed based on method established by a taxonomist named Carl Linnaeus. Linnaeus introduced a system for grouping species from broad to narrow. There are 7 taxonomic levels or categories: kingdom, phylum. Phylum is for animal, but for plantae and fungi, we use division, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay. If we put name into the organism, for example, Felis domestica. Felis domestica is known as a taxon. Meanwhile, genus or species is a status for that particular taxon. In Felis domestica, the species is Felis domestica and the genus is Felis. What is taxon? Taxon is a group of organisms that share a definite set of character. For example, taxon name is Ziames. Ziames is in the level of a species. For example, taxon name is Poaceae, and Poaceae in the level of family, and the kingdom of Poaceae and Ziames is Plantae. Why do we need taxonomy? Because first, all organisms must have name. The name given to organism by taxonomists do not just tell us what they are called, but also help us to understand the relationships between among the species given. It also allows efficient communication among scientists. It makes us understand better what species do we have, what species do we know, and what species could be newly discovered by scientists. It also enables strategies for protection and conservation of endangered and threatened species. If we know what species do we have, if we understand the relationship among the species, we could know the status of the species, whether it is endangered or need to be conserved. If we know the status, we understand better the species, we able to plan the protection and conservation plan for the species. It also facilitates the study of anatomy, physiology, and morphology of similar organisms. It is useful in predicting characteristics of newly discovered species, and it helps us to understand evolutionary patterns that can provide information to the origin and spread the beneficial and harmful varieties. So if we know what we have, if we know what species we have, we can understand better the evolution status of the species. Now we continue with biological nomenclature. It is actually, if you look at the scientific name, there are two parts. So these two name system for scientific names, we call it binomial nomenclature. So biological nomenclature, basically the system is in the form of binomial. The genus name is put at the first word as a first word, at the first word as like your first name, and then followed by epithet. And then this combination, the binomial combination of genus name and epithet is known as a species name. For example, Felis catus. Felis is a genus name and catus is an epithet. So if we put Felis catus, means that it is a species name. Another example is Homo sapiens and Gallus gallus. Okay, Gallus gallus is known also as tautonym because the genus and the species, the genus and the epithet is the same word. Formal scientific name should bear the name of the author at the end. For example, Quercus alba, L. L means the author of the name, Linnaeus. Okay. There are two codes, international codes of nomenclature. One is ICBN. B stand for botany, international code of botany, but also applicable for algae and fungi. Meanwhile, for animals, we have ICZN, International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. And this is the example for a plant. It is a flower. So here is the species name. Okay, look at the species name, Rafflesia anodi, binomial. And then this is example for animal, Pongo pygmaeus. The species name of this animal is Pongo pygmaeus. And then this is example for another animal, Bos javanicus. Bos is genus, Bos javanicus is species name. Okay. Okay, this is another example. Okay, these two, Tembadau and Seladang. Tembadau is a species. Seladang is another species, but they are belong to the same genus. They are belong to the same family, but two species belong to the same genus. The genus is Bos. Okay, this is the few species in the same family, Bovidae. Okay, cattle family. This is a cow. This is another, they call it Brahman bull, and this is water buffalo, and this is seladang. The taxonomists, they often useful when they need to identify species of animal or plant. Okay, any species, to identify the species, we need the skill of taxonomists. So when taxonomists identify an animal, identify plant, they can give data for conservation biology. Taxonomy is also important in any museum system. Means when we have a collection, a museum, collection museum for many kind of species, taxonomists will identify voucher specimens, and along with the museum staff, they will ensure that specimen being preserved. So in the future, we can look back at what we have or what our species available, okay, in the local in that particular locality. In these collections, museum collections, usually we have where we collect the species. For example, the locality. For example, we collect the species in Mount Kinabalu. So if we take the specimen to the museum and we keep the specimen in the museum, we will note that locality, date of collection, who collected the specimen. This information are important. So we can determine the status of the species. For example, the species is endangered. The species is new to science. And we can compare the species to another species in the collection. Either they are belong to the same family, or they are belong to the same genus, or they are not belong to the existed family or genus that available in the collection. The status of population can be determined by the work of taxonomists. So in this case, taxonomist is important in order to give more data for conservation planning tools, such as inventory, estimates of extinction, and information whether the habitat, okay, the habitat of the species is needed to be protected, for example. And taxonomical data also needed for modern genetic study. For example, you want to study a particular species, the DNA, particular animal for the molecular data, particular plant for the chemical data. So you need taxonomy to identify what type of plant, where the plant is available, where you can collect the plant for your study, for the phytochemical study. What is systematics? Okay, systematics is a discipline of classified organism, and at the same time determines their evolution relationships. Okay, systematics use fossil. If the animal is extinct, only available in the form of fossil, and of course today the much needed data, molecular and genetic. Molecular and genetic data like DNA important to infer the evolutionary relationships of the particular species. What is classification? Classification when you arrange individual object into classes. For example, tiger is classified into kingdom of Animalia. Coconut is classified into kingdom of Plantae. Okay, this is back then how it was started. Actually, it is human nature to classify a species.